Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here with us today for this session about a topic that concerns all of us as users of digital tools about online fraud. In order to have a seamless and secure user experience, we know that technologies are everywhere now. With the power of AI and its sophistication is opening more and more opportunities for vulnerability. So today we have a panel of experts. Nolwenn Leclerc from Almond, Denis Boyer from cybermalveillance.fr, David Flota, who is the head of the department for the cyber unit of the National Police Force, Pierre Chastigneux, who is the CEO for BeConnect, and Francis Grégoire, who is the CEO for Memority. They'll introduce themselves as the panel starts, but online fraud is not a light topic in France. It represents an economic loss, a big economic loss. According to the Banque de France, 90% of data leaks start with phishing, and there is an important issue in securing the different elements, and so that's what we'll be talking about today, as well as solutions, possible solutions. So we'll start with Denis Boyer from cybermalveillance.gov.fr. So when we speak about cyber malice, what are we talking about? Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Denis Boyer. I'm a project manager, and I work in raising awareness at cybermalveillance.gov.fr. So that's a GPA created 7 or 8 years ago now. And we have 3 target audiences, which are individuals, SMEs, and local authorities. We have 3 missions. One of them is support to help victims of cyber malice, as well as raising awareness, that's what I do, and education. And that's something we do with our, when assisting victims. The website was launched on the 17th of December 2024, and we had 420,000 support requests in 2024, and we categorized 51 types of cyber malice. So there's many of them, and we're able to extract different statistics in order to help these people. So the numbers are increasing. Why? Well, we can ask ourselves, was the internet safer before than it is now? I'm not sure. We're starting to be a bit better known, so people now have the reflex to go to cybermalveillance.gov.fr. And so when talking about cyber malice and types of it, so, well, we issued our annual report. You can come have a look at our booth. And for everyone, what we noticed was that the first threat was phishing for all audiences. So between 2023 and 2024, there was an increase of 22%. But there's also a certain diversification. Before, phishing was just emails. Now it's also your phone. If I ask you, who here has received a text saying that you had a ticket, a parking ticket, you can raise your hand. There was also phishing with the Amélie and the health card. So that's what we call the mother of cyber malice. And after that, there's account hacking, which is the second item of cyber malice for professionals. it really impacts professionals, whether SMEs or even bigger groups. And then there's also data theft. In 2024, we noticed an increase of 82% and plus 72% for data theft with Via Medis, Almeris, or the telecom operator Free. So all these kinds of cyber malice have something in common. They rely on identity and the fact that someone is trying to steal identity to commit crimes or cyber malice and make money. Next is David Flota from the National Cyber Unit. So can you talk to me about the opportunities given by 17 Cyber to report this fraud? Hi everyone, I'm Colonel David Flota from the National Cyber Unit, and I am in charge of prevention, digital prevention and cybersecurity. And it is a good transition after having heard Denis, because this tool, 17 Cyber, is a tool that we implemented with cybermalveillance.gov.fr as well as the Ministry for the Interior. And we're hoping it will become a reflex for you, just as you already have a reflex to call 17 in France to contact police. Well, we're hoping you'll develop this reflex of going to 17cyber.fr to report cyber issues. So this website was started because we noticed, and Denis mentioned this SMS, this text about expecting a package or something like that. There's an increase of 40% in 5 years, and it's in constant evolution. In 2024, there's still an increase, and there are over 280,000 issues for last year. So the goal was to set up a tool to help citizens to face these attacks and support you. So how to react, what to do or what not to do. And so on 17 Cyber, you can just log on. You can have an online diagnosis. You can even test the tool at our booth. So you can do a diagnosis. We'll give you advice. And if you want to go even further, you can be put in touch with a policeman, because 17 Cyber is in partnership with the ministry. And so you'll be able to chat with a policeman who will try to answer your questions or direct you towards the right department to resolve your problem. So does the service lead to a police report? No, right now it doesn't, but we can direct you to the right platform. So next we'll hear from Nolwenn Luster from Almond. So I'll let you introduce yourself, as well as Almond, and we'll try and understand with you the various operators that can be relevant to this issue. Hello everyone, I'm Nolwenn Luster. I'm in charge of operations and the COO for Almond, which is a major player in cybersecurity. We are 450 people in France, and we're hoping to develop further in Europe. I'm also the president of the Cyber Commission Numéum, which works in digital software in France. So to answer your question and make a link with what you were saying, since we'll be talking about identity and access management, and it's linked to fraud, we'll be asking how can we ensure that the person who is trying to connect is legitimate, is the right person. And so it was already hard before, and it will continue to be complicated because of the emergence of stuff like the IoT or the zero trust model. So when we talk about identity, whether in companies in a professional setting or for individuals, well, yes, and identity can also be a partner or IoT. So we can't offer a solution, whether technological or operational, depending on the topic. So we also noticed that in organizations, the level of maturity is actually quite low when it comes to people who are aware of the risks. So yes, to reply to answer your question about who the stakeholders are, the needs vary depending on the actual stakeholders, the sectors, the professional sectors. Some of them are more mature when it comes to these topics. Also, sometimes because of regulational pressure. But even then, they might not cover the entire perimeter of their identities. And if we look a bit closer and try to segment this question, we have what I would call partial answers about the management of the identity lifecycle. And often the answers that we have are tailored or specific to the context, or the sector, the company, who sometimes will choose a specific platform. And so the question we'll need to be able to answer collectively is that we need a more industrialized model, a smoother model, to allow us to go closer to the actual end user in order for him to be able to give the rights, permissions, and prove his legitimacy. And there are also requirements in order for us to show that we did actually control the identity of such and such user. So that's another layer of complexity. And in order to respond to these questions from a European viewpoint, we know that while there are already solutions that exist on the market with big platforms, and we know that they don't yet provide an answer to all the requirements, sometimes organizational, because often these solutions are quite complex to implement. And so if we're talking about the service market, well, I can say that historically, these projects are not necessarily easy to implement. They need high levels of expertise, of development, which might not necessarily be the skills that some of the teams already have, since we're on the border between cyber and other things. And so certain things allow us to kind of develop a certain level of abstraction or simplification in order to have fewer steps when implementing these solutions. The good news is that there is a regulatory framework that asks organizations to be up to date on this. So yes, this is good news. If, for example, we talk about referentials such as NIS2 or other referentials linked to the resilience project. There's one benefit, which was that they force us to think in terms of ecosystem. And that is a factor of success when we're talking about identity. So if we think about DORA in the financial sector or NIS2, on the entire value chain to actually look at these suppliers or clients. And when discussing identity, we're talking about trust. That's what you have to remember, is that investing in these projects linked to identity and access management, in the end, it allows us to objectivize trust and go look at gains.
So digital identity is an asset for businesses as well. And so it shouldn't just be considered as a constraint. So the idea is about protecting assets. Yes, it can't just be a technical approach. It has to involve, the managers, but thinking about the end users as well. And, at the end of the day, it has to be designed for users as well. And this requires defining the attributes. We have to ask ourselves the questions as well, because people need to understand why we're asking them to provide this identity information. So, Denis and David, often when they come to you, it's because it's too late. But if you're speaking to the market solution providers, how does that work in your relationship with them? Well, it's true that at our website we've said, okay, it's good to be able to point people in the right direction, but we need to know more about who we're pointing them to. So we've got some referenced providers, either for private individuals or for businesses. But, if somebody says, they need help overcoming their cyber malice issue or their incident, we need to know who's who. We need to know who works for businesses or for individuals. So this is what we're trying to do. We need to clearly identify who are the service providers, and they can get this referencing. It's valid for 2 years. So we run them through this process to identify them. And so we put that in place that's available online, and our experts can also use it. So that is our response. Okay, so we aren't necessarily there to provide the technical solution, but to point people in the right direction. Well, for us, yes, we want to raise awareness, first of all, and we need businesses as well to become more mature in terms of cyber security. We work with the businesses, small businesses, local authorities. Okay, the big companies all have their in-house services, so we need to raise awareness and make them more professional in their approach as well. It doesn't matter how many brigades or special units we create, but at the same time, there has to be a diagnosis. We can help with a diagnosis of the cybersecurity to identify weaknesses, and this can be, high-level weaknesses. We're not digging down into the detail of the systems, but we can identify, higher-level GRPD, some basic things like that, and backup systems. But we can see that it's not being done, and the ecosystem isn't well identified either. Okay, thanks for that. So we've got now BeConnect. Tell us about that. So this is already in a rather sensitive environment. So it's a joint venture of banks, the top French banks, BNP, Société Générale, Crédit Mutuel, the top five. And so, in fact, it's, you know, so all of the banks had to roll out systems, the DSP. I'm sure you all use them to, secure your bank card payments, your credit card payments, for example. And so I have been running the systems behind that for some times. It is a huge infrastructure, 2 billion connections a year. And so my idea was that, look at that infrastructure, what can be pulled as well. So, the check-ins, logins, as well as the checkout for the payment. So first we had to convince the banks to pool their resources as well to make themselves stronger together, in fact. And so our strength at BeConnect, so Bank Connect, is that there are, you don't really know, those of you in the room who are French, you've already got it without knowing it, because you don't have to download any software. And just in a few seconds, as soon as of September, you will be able to create a BeConnect profile, so you can do away with your separate passwords for your bank accounts. So you can use the BeConnect account for all of your sites, thousands of them, integrating our platform. So the idea is that you will never need passwords again. The passwords, every year it's in the billions. People find it a pain to have to type in passwords. I mean, if you enjoy that, raise your hand. Okay, most people find this a pain. And as Denis was saying, it's not very good even in terms of security. So even if you've got a super complicated password, just, given the way they're designed, they are mostly worthless. And so for us, we're pragmatic, we're operational. So our feeling is, let's find a system where there are no passwords. Are there solutions out there now? The answer is no, or very few. It's very marginal. So our ambition at BeConnect is to offer, as of September, October, to have a universal system without passwords, and sovereign as well. And I'll come back to the question of sovereignty. So the idea is that it has to be easier, better and easier. And, thanks to the work at Memority, so we've got an AI engine. So just by clicking on the BeConnect button, it should allow you to, you won't even have to log in. And so in 80% of the time, when you click on the BeConnect button, you will be fully secured in your connection. So the remaining 20%, well, it means that the scoring of the AI may have said, oh, it's either a new device or there's a change of IP if you're in a different country, for example. And so there would be a little alert. And from there, it would go automatically shift you to the authentication system of your bank. Okay, so as soon as there any kind of risk detected or something unusual, okay, so it will take you straight to your bank authentication app, and you can use Face ID or whatever you're used to. But so really only in 20% of the cases. So that's important to keep in mind. And I have worked in cyber security for quite some time, because when you're looking, when people are they are always going to opt for the easier solution rather than the higher security. So there are, easier solutions, social logins, I'll call them. These are a single password, so that's even worse if there's no double authentication. But there's no other options than that currently. And so, I think everyone's become very aware of the geopolitical situation that really means we have to move toward cyber sovereignty in France. So, I've seen this in terms of payments, sovereignty in terms of payments. There's a big challenge here. So, there's the check-in systems, not just the check-out systems that we need to keep in our hands. If you look at the underlying technologies, we need control. And so at BConnect, we're looking at working with a hyperscaler in which we have, full confidence. Thales as well. So we have chosen sovereign partners that are working nationally for us, and they have to demonstrate that they are only using sovereign systems. And so BConnect, it's okay, it's a B2C and it will be free. So the millions of people will be able to use it free of charge for the long term. And it's the e-commerce, utilities, etc., who want to use it. There'll be a business model for the work with them. And it does have to be a return on investment for the e-commerce sites, for example. And so, they will understand that it's interesting for them. Let me give you an example. So 25% of people leave before checkout. They abandon what they've got in their basket because they've forgotten their password and don't find it in time. And then there's so that's a large number of the abandonment of the purchase. And another 15% who leave before entering their bank card. Okay, and so we can look at the check-in and check-out. So I'm on a e-commerce site. Regardless of the type of card, the system will go via BConnect, and it also has a scoring system. Okay, as you know, you're not always asked to provide double authentication by the bank. Well, now going via BConnect, it means that it's much more likely that the person will be able to complete the purchase. So it's the transformation rate to complete the purchase. So that's hugely important for e-commerce sites. They can see that people put things in the basket and then they don't complete the purchase. So that's why we're insisting on the fact that there be a genuine business model behind that. And so we're very optimistic about all of this. And the 4 or 5 coming years, we hope to handle at least 1 billion transactions.
Thank you very much, Pierre. So now Francis Grégoire for Memority. I'll let you introduce Memority. So hello everyone, I'm Francis Grégoire, CEO of Memority. I'm in charge of strategy and innovation at my company. So our slogan is Identity Factory. It's 360 degrees. So we are a software editor in software as a service that allows us to cover all digital identities as well as human identities. So here I'm talking about employees, partners, clients of a company, but also non-human identities. So IoT as well as technical accounts, service accounts, various accounts that allow us to access to information systems, whether on-site or on the cloud. We cover all domains of IAM, so from the creation of the identity to its deletion, creation of the resources that it will need access to, authentication, and the means of authentication that'll go from simply a login and password to things like MFA. Another particularity of Memority, to reply to what you were saying, Nowen, is the ability to personalize the platform. We allow you to go into great detail to personalize the platform depending on the needs of the company. So that's very important because since we handle different kinds of identity, for example, when managing identities for B2C or managing identities for a big company or for a supplier that is accessing the systems of a big company. So that's something we do directly in the system or via APIs. One of our particularities is also that we are a French company, 100% French, created, operated, hosted in France over 2 types of cloud providers. And we're working with the ANSSI in order to obtain a cloud qualification as an SAS. We have another cloud provider, which is AWS, which, as you know, is not sovereign and is not what I would call a trusted cloud provider. But we have some big clients such as Valeos, Total, Safran, etc., that have different challenges than just sovereignty. So what's important is that also there are 2 entrepreneurs that wanted to buy this company. Yes, so Memority was created in 2014 as a software editor with Gilles, who is here today. So it was founded in 2014 and bought by Accenture in 2017. So we were American or under American rule. But since we handle thousands of identities, for example, we manage all the vehicles of Stellantis. And in 2023, we carved out Memority in order for it to become French again. Why? Because, well, for various reasons. The business model, Accenture worked with a lot of our competitors, and the objective for us was to be able to rise up to certain challenges in terms of sovereignty that Accenture simply couldn't as an American company. And so we've now become fully independent and gone from 30 employees to 100 employees, and we're still growing. So Nowen, identity allows us to take the subject out of simply the IT sphere. Yes, we've talked about this already. It has now become a business lever for BeConnect. It's not just the company, but it's the partners, its clients, the clients of its clients. So it is a topic linked to trust, but not something that can be handled as a simple technical project in the scope of the IT department. The run has to include all different roles, HR, and yes, well, it means that it's a lot of work, but that's the case in many aspects. I'd like to see the glass half full. I like to see the opportunity, which allows us to increase awareness about identity and link it to other topics, protection, cyber defense, and use this topic in order to continue raising awareness, educate about cross-cutting topics when implementing these solutions in companies. What's the use of cybersecurity? Yes, it allows us to go faster in terms of digitalization. It can lead to a competitive edge and gain trust in the market, in the digital market. So that's, I'm not the one saying it, Monsieur Drahi is the one saying that digital is the main lever that will allow Europe to be a main stakeholder that it wants to be. So here in France, we have the opportunity to have France Connect, which is a public initiative that allows us to improve connection between various services. Do you have other examples of partnerships between the public and the private sector to have better synergy in these systems? So here on our website, it's in our DNA, we have 64 members from the public and private sector that work hand in hand. So a lot of what we do is based in prevention and raising awareness. So it's something that everyone needs, whether individual or professional. So we have a few big groups. So I heard earlier AWS, Google, the BNP. We have smaller stakeholders, local authorities, and we also have official ministries, the Ministry for the Interior, Ministry for Education. So we have a lot of partnerships, very strong partnerships, which work between the public and private sector, which work very well, because in terms of raising awareness, everyone needs it. So earlier, Nolwenn mentioned it, prevention and awareness raising has to be at all levels. When talking to professionals, we're actually talking to the individuals before talking to the professionals as members of the workforce. For example, when receiving a message, not just simply click on the link, but more asking ourselves, is it normal that I am receiving this message? And think about what the next steps are. So this what we call digital hygiene. And that's a continuous process. And it shouldn't be seen as a constraint. Security measures have to be integrated at 3 levels: technical, organizational, and human. And in order to reduce cyber threats, we need to integrate these 3 measures. So we want to remove the problem of identity. Can it lead to decreased responsibilization of the user? Well, we have to be careful. Some people will always find a way to try and make money. When talking about cybercrime, so we're talking in judicial terms, we're talking about identity theft, and the wording is and other criminal behavior. So there's no specific mention because there are so many ways. And so we're talking about, for example, authentication of someone making a bank transfer. All of these measures are important to take into account. So on the police side, yes, it's also in our DNA. We have a project that we work on with AXA in order to reach younger audiences. We know it's complicated to explain this issue of passwords, to have only one password per account, that it has to be complex. We don't want to make them feel guilty, even though we know that 70% linked of the problems linked to attacks are human and are linked to logins and passwords. Education doesn't do everything. We need a user experience that is simple, and when we go into specifics, we can create breaches. So, like Pierre said, it can be simplified with just a button. Now we know that everything can be that people will always find a way. For example, DSP2 was the victim of a breach, but yeah. Pierre, you wanted to say something? Yes. What David was saying about social engineering, the weak link in these solutions is always us. When we think about how sophisticated the cyber attacks are today, the capacity of fraudsters to make someone think that there's someone else. So that really is what the social engineering is to make someone think that we are a trusted person and make them do things that they shouldn't do. So what I'm going to tell you might be a bit counterintuitive. I was at the head of a project fighting fraud in banking systems, and we had put in place very sophisticated systems. And what we notice is that nowadays we have lower fraud rates when the user is not involved in the authentication process. So it might sound a bit counterintuitive when you're using your bank authentication app to confirm a card transaction. Well, if there is an AI engine that is sophisticated enough, it might handle it better than a human. And so that's why with BConnect we wanted to emphasize this AI engine, because in my experience, I know that we can have higher performance and seamlessness, but I also think there's a psychological or social dimension, because when the user is clicking to try and access their account without necessarily having any specific actions to do, that can lead to questions. So when opening the bank app, not just for these cybersecurity aspects, but in order to give the end user that the feeling that he is an actively involved in his own cybersecurity. And that's what Denis was saying, the awareness raising education, explaining in simple terms what these things are, which our friends at the police force do so well. Explaining this in order to inspire trust in these tools and allow them to be widely used. Nodwin? Yes, just quickly. I think that's also why it's important to have technical solutions that are seamless, have good user interface, be adaptive, because we've seen many topics about these projects that were either too long to implement, or that failed, or that were implemented but were not used, because then we think that we have actually put solutions in place, but they don't serve their purpose. And that's because we don't have a high enough level of easy integration with the end users and the professionals, because we spend money, we might have lost legitimacy with our colleagues without necessarily increasing the level of cybersecurity. And so what Pierre was saying, in 20% of cases, so on BConnect, when clicking on the button, he will still be in the context of the used, and so the model learns by itself, not necessarily by all the users, but by you in your habits.
And so when we talk about social engineering, so for me, you know, my data is on the dark web. I know it's out there. So, and so, they can come up with phishing attacks. So what does that mean? It means that mass theft of data, you know, it means that, well, there were also other types of accounts that needed to be secured, such as employee data, for example. And so this isn't just a technical question, but also when you look at some of the solutions that are out there, there are some for B2C, B2B, for the human resources departments, and so it's difficult to tie that together. Well, so then who's responsible then? At what level should this be organized? Well, that's a good question, and it could be the CISO, but not only. And so there's also, the people who need to be facilitating the business, what B Connect is proposing, okay? Because private individuals, often feel like this is not for them to manage, it's for the specialists to manage. So it's to do with individuals, it's true. But, when we look at the way companies are now organized, how extensive they are, there's a lot of digitized services, and we all have multiple digital identities as well to be managed. We're a private individual, we're a consumer, we're an employee. There's all of that to be managed. So can we create a European leader in this area? Well, that's certainly our ambition, to become the European leader for identity as a service. And so, our big competitors are on the other side of the Atlantic. And so looking at the global environment, if I think it's now clear how important it is. But we need innovative players as well, who can cover the complete spectrum. Well, many people say, let Microsoft manage their identities, so why use Memority? Well, that's a good question. Microsoft, of course, offers certain types of solutions, and they do it quite well as concerns, for example, the employee identities for a company, but they don't cover all types of identity. So if you look at Stellantis, for example, they said, well, what about our blue-collar workers? We need more than that. It's not just the office workers with a digital ID. And so, and Microsoft doesn't handle that well. And the big American players, it's hard to configure for your specific needs. Okay, so there's a lot of questions around data strategy and access to the data. And so, yeah, Nolan. Well, when you're lucky enough to have a technologically valid European partners available, I think that would be more responsible for us to work with them and to support them in their development. On cybersecurity, we're lucky in France. There are a lot of tech companies covering all forms of solutions. And I believe that collectively as well, we can do something to make them more accepted. And so we all have a responsibility. We all have a role to play here to offer, and of course the public entities can direct people to French companies, and so we don't have to accept domination from by companies outside of France. And you can use Microsoft for certain things, but French solutions for other things. And Pierre, what about sovereignty issues? Yeah, definitely. And it's about protecting everyone's identity. At Be Connect, they wanted to be protected from the American clouds, basically. So they were looking for a provider that they could trust. And, they wanted good operations, and there aren't so many of us out there who could offer them a sufficient platform that would be scalable and suitable to their needs. So we have to be, consistent in our approach to ensure that your data is not accessible to the American authorities, and they would not be put out on a marketplace, that they can't be captured and sold. So, your connection data, can be out there, as you've probably heard, before. If you're not the client, you are the product being sold, and that's your data that's being sold. And in many cases, there's an authentication system in place, but the bank might not even know from which site you can, the bank shouldn't know where you're connecting from. The banks should not know about your personal movements. So we have a contractual, BeConnect has a contractual relationship with them as an, IAD as a service, okay? And so their relationship is only with us in this sense. So when you talk about protecting data and ensuring confidentiality, it has to be effective. So, for us, we've seen a lot of, various software out there, but that was a bit empty behind all of that. It was a lot of talk and no real action. Any questions from the audience? So at BeConnect, is this only for mobile devices, or will there be a computer version as well? And I'm wondering about the integrity of devices, if any malware, we've got, Windows on the one side, and some things that might not be detected by antivirus systems that could be gathering data and ID. So I'm wondering about that. Okay, first of all, yes, BeConnect is multi-device, so your smartphone, computer, laptop, 3 phones if you like. And this scoring system that I talked to you about will allow you to connect as many devices as you like. As for the security of these devices, memory comes into play at each transaction. So we are limiting the risk in that sense. You can't claim zero risk. That's does not exist. It will never exist. But the idea is to have the professionals who can detect anything suspicious. And working with Thales, they've helped us create an observability system to pick up on any weak signals that might identify any weaknesses. Okay, let's move on to another question. That's fascinating, but we'd like to take more questions. So another question for BeConnect. You've generated quite some buzz. Okay, so you said it's for private individuals and for companies? No, it's B2C, in fact. Okay, so they won't be having to change passwords. And you're saying that we will no longer have to do that. We can just set aside. So I'm wondering, it sounds like a magic tool, but is that free of charge? So who's paying for this at the end of the day? For consumers, it's individual. Okay, but if you have an e-commerce site, they will be paying for the connections. So they are paying for it, but, they should quickly see the return on investment. As I mentioned, those baskets that don't complete the checkout. Question for BeConnect. You said it's multi-device, so then what is the authentication from a computer? For example, okay, smartphone is one thing, but if your smartphone is stolen, what happens? And you've also said that the banks won't know necessarily what's going on. Well, the banks will know if you've made a purchase in any case. All right, that's a different topic. Okay, we can manage the check-in, not the checkout. Okay, so it's true that a computer is not necessarily personal, unlike a phone. So if you're using the computer, we will ask, is this a personal device when you're going to create your account? And then you will have to be authenticated by the bank every single time in that case, if you're trying to use it from a computer that is not your personal computer. I have a question for Francis Grégoire. You talked about identity as a service. So tell us about some of the legislation coming. How do you see the regulatory framework evolving? Okay. Thank you for that question. Yes, we, of course, will have to have a system that will integrate these requirements as they evolve. And then only with consent would there be any type of sharing of the data. So recently at a banking seminar, we were talking about these topics. So we have to be looking at these new systems for authentication, and there's going to be new rules about sharing. All right, then it's time to wrap up our session. Let me thank our speakers. So you've seen really that fraud is systemic. In fact, there's a whole framework within which we have to develop new systems. It's a question of building confidence. So those solutions are out there. So there's some very interesting initiatives led by the banks. And so thank you, everyone. Thanks to our panelists.